The word of the highest constitutional court of the land has no value in the eyes of state governments. What will happen to all the money in Tirupati? You first worry about the temples in your street and then you think about Tirupati. As if the temple is running the city and certain parts of the state. If that is the case, you might as well call it a Hindu Rashtra. Now therefore, if the problem statement is that either the institution sometimes does not understand your position, or even if it happens to understand your position by some happy coincidence, the state is not willing to listen to the Supreme Court, then what are the options left to the Hindu community? I am posing this question to the community as a practicing lawyer, saying what are the options available to you if even the word of the highest constitutional court of the land has no value in the eyes of state governments? Now, what I have realized over the years, in my limited years of practice before the Supreme Court, or for that matter any constitutional court, is that it appears that all arms of the state are fairly sensitive to public opinion. So whenever we speak on this particular subject, we are constantly asked by members of the audience, what can we do as practicing Hindus? What is it that we can do? So I will give a slightly mischievous suggestion. Make sure that any government appointee in a religious institution, especially in a Hindu institution, is pushed to the limits of compliance, which is to say, he must constantly fear questions from the public. It must not be an easy ride for him under any circumstances. I am not asking members of the public to do anything that is illegal. I am merely saying make sure that whatever he does is legal, and even if he has the slightest of intentions of making a departure, he must fear public reactions in terms of vocal reactions. I don't mean unconstitutional reactions, I am saying vocal reactions. To the extent that anyone who is appointed as an executive officer to any Hindu institution must tell himself, my Sade Sati 7.5 has begun. And this is my punishment posting. Because I can come and tell you a few things about what the Supreme Court has said and what are the legal differences and nuances and technicalities. But I think it's time to arm the public with solutions, practical solutions. I don't think it makes sense for anyone sitting in some remote part of the country to sit and worry about what will happen to all the money in Tirupati. You first worry about the temples in your street and then you think about Tirupati. Unless and until you're able to make an example out of state appointees in institutions which are in your proximity and in your vicinity, you are in no position to sit and talk about Tirupati. Look at the scale of the problem there. Jewels are gone, gold is lost. Tirupati's money is dipped into like state coffers for building of flyovers, for building of institutions which have got nothing to do with Tirupati, that particular temple. So it's almost as if the temple is running that city and certain parts of the state. If that is the case, you might as well call it a Hindu Rashtra. So therefore my point is, work towards practical, workable, local solutions. The thing that you can do as a practicing Hindu is to take an active interest in the running of the affairs of your local temples first. The chick temples that Srihari kept talking about. Focus on them. Protect them. Ask yourself if the current pujari of that particular temple has to leave that particular temple for whatever reasons. Do you have a replacement? In how many temples of your Ishtadevatas or your Kuladevatas do you actually have people to continue that particular tradition? I faced that problem personally when I went to my Ishtadevata, or my Kuladevata temple. I didn't even know if there would be the next person to take over the mantle from there on. These are real-time issues. When a temple falls under disuse, it becomes public property and it is ripe and open for encroachment and illegal encroachment. And when you think of a temple, don't limit yourself only to that particular institution. Think of it as an ecosystem. Which means when you think of a temple, you should immediately ask, most temples have lands associated with them. What is the status of the land associated with this particular temple? And you will find that most of them are under encroachment and illegal occupation. And certainly not, in most cases, not by members of the community. At least if it's members of the community, then you can still kind of hope to regularize it, take some rent. But if it's members of some other community, secularism will immediately come in the way. And you will not be able to take action. Second, on the aspect of whether it makes sense to go to court on a regular basis. Unless and until you have a master solution coming from the state, you have no other option but to go to court on a regular basis. And a master solution will come from the state, not because it suddenly grows a Hindu conscience, but because there is an incentive to look into that particular issue, or there is a disincentive to not pay attention to it. Either you get votes or you lose votes. Only then the state will listen. And therefore it is time that this particular movement becomes a mass movement owned by members of the Hindu community and not by lone individuals here and there. It is time that this attracts a critical mass of people who talk about this on a regular basis. It is not just about education, it's not just about, let's say, civilization. Let's think of very, very real issues. The only way that you can conceivably stop conversions at this particular point of time is if you have the ability to use the resources of your community to protect people and give them livelihoods. That's the only way to do it. The state government is using your money to give benefits to others. I am saying use your money to protect your people and stop them from leaving the fold. It has become as critical as that. Otherwise, you will struggle to take out a Rath Yatra in 10 or 15 years' time. You will not be able to. Given what's happening across the country, you will not be in a position to celebrate your festivals with the same kind of freedom that you're able to at least now. This is not a great situation, but even this won't be there. Second, legal outcomes, and the process is definitely slow. There is no doubting it. In India, everything is slow, so why do you expect the judicial process to be fast? It will move at the same pace. But it is important to invest in it, because you don't want a decision to be taken behind your backs or while you're a mute spectator on the sidelines. Because then the court has the excuse, or even at least the state has the excuse to say, why was there no representation from members of the community if they wanted to protect something which they hold dear? If you believe that something is important, you show it in action by participating in that particular process, not by staying in the sidelines. 3, even in a judicial process, don't lose heart, because there are any number of examples in Indian judicial history where persistence has paid off and even a negative decision has been reversed at some point of time. You're not investing in the next 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, you're effectively investing in the next 35 to 40 years. Because you're racing against the anti-dharmic investment of at least the last 150 years. And at the very least the last 70 years. So you should be looking at least conservatively speaking, 2 decades of significant investment. Freeing temples from state control is not the destination, it is the means to another destination, it is the beginning of a journey. So unless and until this particular goal itself is achieved in a conceivable and a relatively foreseeable timeline, there are so many other issues which this particular issue itself can address that you will not be in a position to. Think of it, I'm throwing a couple of wild options open. Today, Hindu fertility rate is significantly going down because educated couples do not want to have more than one child, or even having one child has become a serious issue. If the institution were to take, if every sampradaya and its matha were to take the responsibility to say, one child for yourself and one child for the community, we will take care of the one child. We will take care of it entirely. If the community, or let's say its institutions, have the freedom and the resources to take those decisions, to a significant extent, you will be in a position to even replace yourself, which is to say, and to quote a philosopher, a contemporary philosopher, at the very least, every civilization's duty is to replace itself, which is to say, you must at least have equal number of people who can occupy your positions. Today, Hindu fertility rate has significantly gone down, and we are not even sure if we are in a position to replace it. So look at the kind of serious problems that this particular institution is capable of addressing, provided it doesn't fight this battle with both hands tied to its back, which is what it is doing at this point. Strengthen your Sampradayic institutions by giving them the confidence that you will back them in their negotiations with every arm of the state. That your dharmic institutions can negotiate with the powers, so to speak, with the confidence and the comfort and assurance that its followers stand by them.